In recent weeks, an incident involving a Philippine patrol aircraft and Chinese military forces over the South China Sea has once again drawn national attention to a question that has been quietly growing in importance. Are Philippine patrol missions becoming more dangerous? And if so, what does that mean for the country's long-term security strategy? When Chinese aircraft reportedly fired flares near a Philippine patrol plane operating in contested airspace, the event was not merely another entry in the long list of regional frictions. It was a reminder that routine missions carried out by the armed forces of the Philippines now take place in an environment where risk is rising, even when no side openly seeks escalation. For the Philippines, patrols in the South China Sea are not symbolic gestures. They are a practical expression of sovereignty and a legal obligation tied to national interests. Regular air and maritime patrols allow Manila to assert its rights under international law, reinforce the arbitral ruling of 2016, and demonstrate to domestic and international audiences that it has not abandoned areas it considers vital to its security and economy. Fisheries protection, freedom of navigation, and the safety of coastal communities all depend on a sustained presence. In this sense, stopping patrols would not reduce tension. It would simply remove the Philippines from the picture while others continue to operate freely. What has changed is not the purpose of these missions, but the context in which they are conducted. In earlier years, Philippine patrols often encountered warnings transmitted over radio or visual signaling from Chinese vessels and aircraft. These encounters were tense, but largely predictable. More recent interactions suggest a willingness by Chinese forces to operate closer to Philippine assets, compressing reaction time and increasing the possibility of miscalculation. The use of flares near an aircraft is widely interpreted as a form of coercive signaling rather than an attempt to cause harm, but it introduces a new layer of danger. Aviation incidents do not require hostile intent to become tragic. Small errors, turbulence, or equipment malfunction can turn signaling into disaster. Against this backdrop, the response of the Philippine military has been notably restrained and professional. Officials have emphasized that patrols will continue and that crews are trained to handle pressure in contested environments. This message is important for domestic confidence. The armed forces of the Philippines operate with more limited resources than some regional actors, but experience, discipline, and clear rules of engagement matter as much as hardware. By maintaining calm and avoiding provocative maneuvers, Philippine crews reduce the risk of incidents while still fulfilling their mission. Equally significant has been the government's approach to transparency. In the past, many encounters in the South China Sea were known only through vague statements or unofficial reports. Today, Manila increasingly releases images, video footage, and detailed briefings. This strategy serves several purposes. It reassures the public that the government is not concealing risks faced by its personnel. It also places incidents within a factual record that can be evaluated by international partners and observers. Transparency acts as a form of deterrence by signaling that unsafe behavior will not go unnoticed or undocumented. Public reaction in the Philippines reflects a society that is both alert and divided. A substantial segment of the population supports a firm stance, viewing continued patrols as essential to national dignity and long-term security. For these citizens, the risks faced by pilots and sailors are unfortunate but necessary costs of defending sovereignty. At the same time, there is a visible current of concern about escalation. Some Filipinos worry that repeated close encounters could draw the country into a larger conflict not of its choosing. These fears are not rooted in weakness, but in historical memory and a realistic assessment of power asymmetries in the region. The role of allies complicates but also stabilizes this picture. The Philippines has deepened security cooperation, not only with its long-standing treaty ally, the United States, but also with partners such as Japan, France, and Canada. Critics sometimes argue that this risks undermining national autonomy. In practice, these relationships function primarily as strategic insurance. Allies do not fly patrols in place of Philippine crews, nor do they dictate operational decisions. Instead, their presence raises the diplomatic and political costs of reckless behavior by any party. For many Filipinos, this reassurance matters even if Allied forces are not physically present during every incident. Looking ahead, the central challenge for Manila is risk management rather than confrontation. Reducing patrols would likely weaken the Philippines' position and embolden others to treat absence as acquiescence. Increasing patrol frequency or adopting a more aggressive posture, however, could heighten the chance of accidents. The balance lies in steady, predictable operations supported by clear communication, strong training standards, and continued transparency. Over time, investments in surveillance, maritime domain awareness, and air safety will be as important as new platforms or weapon systems. Ultimately, the growing danger surrounding Philippine patrols does not mean that the strategy itself is flawed. It means that the environment has become less forgiving. Patrols are conducted not to provoke, but to prevent the slow erosion of rights and presence. For the Philippines, remaining visible and active in the South China Sea is a way of shaping outcomes without resorting to force. The real measure of success will not be the absence of incidents, which may be unrealistic, but the ability to navigate them without loss of life or control. In this sense, the current moment is a test of national maturity. The Philippines is asserting itself more openly, communicating more clearly, and relying on both its own institutions and its partnerships to manage risk. Patrols may indeed be becoming more dangerous, but withdrawing from them would carry dangers of its own. The challenge is not to choose between courage and caution, but to apply both at the same time.